Hello, in today's tutorial I'm going to present you how to record a source of a traffic. Traffic may come from different sources like Google Ads or email marketing. And if you would like to record this information inside the session in Tracardi and then have all the subsequent clicks retrieve this information and send it to some external analytical system, then watch this video. Okay, let's get started. Before we begin, we have to describe how Tracardi is storing data. It stores data in three different indexes. One is events, second is profiles and sessions. Each one holds a different type of data. Events will hold all the events that are coming from the JavaScript. That would be page views, purchase orders, whatever event you define. And then we have profile. Profile is information about the user that is performing the events, and sessions are associated with visits. Each session begins with the open browser, and when the browser closes and when you reopen the browser, then we'll have another session. I will show you on the example. We'll use a test page. This page is for JavaScript integration. It tests the JavaScript that is provided by Tracardi, and this is the configuration, and these are the type of events we are sending. I'm going to refresh the page and we see the response from the server, and when we look at data you can see that we have 4 events, exactly same number as the event we've sent, 1 2 3 4, and we have one profile. This is associated with the user, and we have one session. Sessions has some context, and we can see that I have been using Mozilla Firefox. If I refresh this page several times, you can see that the number of sessions did not change because I didn't leave the page. The number of profiles also didn't change, but the number of events it did. So we have all the events sent several times. Knowing this, we can save the data about the source of traffic in sessions. So whenever we need this information, we'll have it in session, and session is saved only with the first click. Before we go further, we have to get acquainted with UTMs. UTMs are codes that are attached to the URL, so we know from which source, medium or campaign the user is coming from. So when we attach UTM source to our URL and we include it in the mailing, for example, then we could find out that the user came from the mailing, or if we have like a Google ad, we can attach this to the Google ad and say that this comes from the Google ad. And I did it with a test page. We can see that with each event we have this information saved in context page URL. What we want to do, we want to have this information with all the subsequent clicks. That means if we go to some other page within the current session, we will not have this parameter, but I would like to have it saved in a session so I can reference to this data, and then later on I can send this data with each subsequent click to some analytical server. Okay, so how can we do this? Let's go to processing and let's create a new workflow. Within this workflow, we need to start the workflow. I would like to debug it, so I will use a debug node. I will be reading data from page view event because this event is on every page. Let's debug it, and we can see that we have an event, and this event has the data we need. Here we go. First I have to find out if this is a new visit. Let's go and find visit. Is this a new visit? If it is, we will have payload on this node. Then let's parse the URL. And the URL is in event context page URL. Let's debug it, and we see that on the output we have params UTM source. We may not have this information, so we better check it if it really exists. So we have a node data exists, and we check if payload params UTM source exists. If it does, we'll have on this true node a payload. Right now we need to save it into session. We use set trade. This is a node that can copy or set traits into some internal state of the workflow. And as we know, we have profile, event, data, and session inside the workflow. Let's debug it and let's go and see if our session has the data. Properties UTM source is equal to Google add 1. Right now we need to update sessions so we are sure that the data is saved. Actually, we could leave it because with the new visit the session is always updated, but I want to be sure that everything works. We will have the information about the UTM source in our session. So let's create a routing rule. Routing rule will connect our page view event that comes from our test source. I've created this test source and we'll run this workflow. This workflow is a draft. I need to deploy it so it's available outside on the production server. And right now, let's run our test. Let's refresh it. Let's go to our data. We see that our page view was processed. And now we'll see the flow logs and we see that the start node was executed and is a new visit node was executed, but nothing else. Oh, we don't see the flow debug information. We can try to have some more information and go to the workflow and collect debug information. Deploy it and let's run it again. We don't know what happened. Actually, I know what happened, but I want to show you this. So let's go and see the new page view. And here we go. Start node started and is new visit stop the workflow. Why is that? You can see that we have an information on a port false. It means that this refresh, this click actually is not a first visit. And that's correct before I visited this page before. So let's go and open new browser and I will paste this URL. So right now we have like a new visit and we should see our workflow running for the first visit. Let's refresh data. Let's find the page view. And here we go. And now we see that the workflow is working and we've updated our session and we can see that the state properties has UTM source and that's in a session. You can just go and see that in our data sessions. There's a new session because I've opened it in a new browser and has properties UTM source. Right now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this and I'm simulating that I've clicked some other URL and we still should have the information in the session. So let's refresh it. And here we go, we still have this information in the session and we can reference it from our workflow and send it to some external system. To wrap it up, this is a simple workflow that will check if there is a new visit, parse the URL, check if there is a UTM parameters inside this URL, and then it will set UTM in a session. This is the copying of the data. So session is equal to payload. Okay, and that's it. This is how you store UTM parameters in a session. You can have like your own parameters stored in the session. This is up to you. This is how you pass the information from the URL to the session. But there is a great news because right now with a new version of Tracardi, the UTMs are supported out of the box. So you don't have to do anything. You just type the UTMs in your URL and then you have it in your session.